Hello friends, this is Jono, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about how to tune your content in your community to your audience as effectively as possible. And I'm going to give you some super concrete data from the Asana community that can shape our conversation today. Does that make sense? All right, well, let's dig in. So what are we here to do? Well, as a general rule, when you build a community, no matter what the topic is, every week you need to make sure that you've got interesting content, discussions, engagement going on. Otherwise, people will just get bored and never come back, right? The analogy here is Netflix. If you opened up Netflix and it was the same 5 TV shows over and over again, would you go back? Would you? I wouldn't. I'd never go back, right? The reason why we go back to Netflix is not because it's Netflix, it's because of the content. So what we need to do is we need to do the same thing with our community. We need to make sure that we're identifying what is the right kind of content for our audience, and we're putting it out there every single week, okay? So how do we figure out what is the right kind of content for our audience? Well, the first thing I'm gonna recommend you do is you think about, okay, well, who is your audience member, right? And then the next thing is figure out what are the pain points for those audience members, right? Okay? So let's say you're building a community around software development, right? And let's say it's a software development community around a framework that's used to build websites, a front-end development framework, okay? What are the pain points? Now, for some people, there's gonna be some narrow pain points, things that are specific to software engineering, you know, in that particular context. It's gonna be things like cross-browser compatibility, dealing with implementing different accessibility frameworks and requirements because they can be pretty complicated. It can be interfacing with other systems and tools. But then there's the broader things that people will deal with. Like, what are the broader things that will impact everybody who's building software, right? It could be things like, hey, there's been a bunch of tech layoffs recently. Is that gonna happen to me, right? Those are the kind of things. What about like, oh, how do I work with that marketing team or that product team? Or the security team keeps telling me that I need to write software that's more secure. How do I deal with that, right? These are the broader sets of pain points that people will have, right? So zone in on those pain points, because this should be the foundation of everything you do in your community. Every piece of content, every discussion, every interaction, every engagement is solving those pain points, making that pain go away. And why do I care so much about pain? It's a weird thing to say. Why do I care so much about pain? Because we respond to pain resolution more than pleasure, right? Like if you're a dentist and you've got 2 people stood in front of you, somebody who's got horrendous toothache and somebody who wants to get their teeth whitened, who is going to demand you as a dentist more urgently? It's clearly going to be the person with the horrendous toothache. And speaking to somebody with those British teeth that are being fixed and now turned into American teeth, believe me, I've had a lot of toothache in my life. I know exactly how this works with dentists, all right? All right, so we've zoned in on those pain points. Now, how do we tune the content and the discussion that we put out there to make sure it is as valuable as possible? And to do this, what we do is we look at data, right? Data is everything. So let's say you identify some of those pain points and you kick off some discussions in your community. Maybe you create some content, some blog posts, some how-tos, some guides, whatever else, put it into your community. Now, how do we evaluate how those things are performing to make sure that we're making the right kind of choices to optimize and improve our community, okay? Well, this is where the data piece comes in. So let's say, for example, you are the Asana community, right? I took this screenshot. This is from their discourse forum, okay? This is April the 12th, 2021 to April the 12th, 2022. The date really doesn't matter. The point is that this is a 1-year time frame. And what you can see here are the top discussions in discourse. This is the most popular conversations that are in there. Now, what we need to do, right, and I need you to challenge your big brain at this, right, is have you ever seen that show CSI Miami, right? Have you seen it? Yeah? You know the guy with the red hair who wears the sunglasses? I don't have any sunglasses in there, but you know, like, he's the dude where, you know, when there's a crime, he does this kind of like, it looks like it was a crime of passion, right? He does those very dramatic things, right? He's like the main detective type person. You want to make sure that you are channeling him in how you look at this data, okay? So let's explain what that means. So for example, let's look at the top one here, the top discussion in this year, and that is Asana for desktop, now available for early access. Now, when we look at this, okay, the first thing you're going to want to look at is, okay, well, there was 8,600 views, which is great. There was 80 replies. So there's a decent amount of traffic, which is views, and a decent amount of replies, which is good. So what can we, like, why was it? Like, what do we need to look at? What's in the crime scene that we need to spot to determine what caused this, okay? And the first thing I would look at is desktop. Asana for desktop. Maybe Asana for desktop versus Asana for web is more interesting to our audience, right? The other thing I'd be looking at here is early access. Oh, well, maybe the community are really excited about things that relate to early access programs, okay? That's kind of interesting as well, okay? So I'd want to test those things, put out some more content, some discussions about Asana for the desktop as well as early access programs to see if we can replicate a similar level of activity, okay? Now, let's now go and take a look at this one, right? The new custom field type. Use multi-select to evolve how your team tracks work, all right? So again, if we take a look at the numbers here, this has had fewer views, right? But it's more recent, right? This is from December 21 as opposed to June 21, which is the one above. It's had a reasonable number of replies. It's not as engaging as the top one, okay? But I'd want to look into things like, okay, well, when we compare these time periods, is the bottom one more active than the second one? Like, the fact that it's had that many views with less time means that it's probably a more interesting post than the top one because, you know, it's a younger post and it's had almost the same number of views, even though it's had fewer replies. So it's a very compelling thing for us to take a look at. Now, maybe that's because we're talking about new custom field types, right? Could that be a thing that we explore, that we engage with? Maybe it could be product updates. This is the category that it's in, okay? So the key thing that you want to do here is you want to make sure that for each of these little hypotheses that you develop is that you then put out content that is about those topics to see if you get a similar or a different reply. And as I just demonstrated here, it's not just about the topic, it's about the type of content, right? So when you go and take a look at this, right? It's not just, you know, Asana for desktop, which is a topic. It's also early access, which is a type of content in some ways, or a product update is a type of content as well. So that's one of the key things you want to do is put content out there, test it, see what happens, and see if you get a similar kind of result. And this is how we dial things in, because you, over a period of time, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up really dialing in some of the specifics around what your community really likes to do. What's interesting is that this is what ad people do, like in the ad world. People who run ads, because ads by definition cost money, they have to be able to dial them in to get them as cheap as possible. So what they do is they usually start out with a broad kind of targeting base, see how the ad performs, and then they narrow the targeting base, which lowers the costs, right? And we do the same thing with our community, is we throw out lots of different topics, see what resonates, and then we can increase the material of the topics that people seem to really like, okay? Now, there's a little bit of a bonus here. I want to talk also about how we look at users. So here you can see for the quarter of Jan the 12th to April the 12th, right, 2022, these were the top users in the Asana community. And one of the things I like about this, that I'd encourage you to do this, is because when you can identify the top users, it gives us the ability to, one, recognize and reward people. You can reach out to these folks and say, hey, thank you for being a part of our community. We really appreciate what you do. But also it's a great opportunity to reach out to them and say, what are the things that you have really enjoyed engaging in, or what are the topics that you're really thinking about most recently? And you're going to get some great insight from them. So usually the way this is evaluated inside of discourse which is discourse specific, is this is ranked by the number of likes received and the number of likes given, okay? And I quite like this. I mean, this is likes received primarily, because if people keep liking your stuff, generally you're putting good stuff out, right? Unless you have a community where everybody likes everything, which I've not come across one of those yet, but yours may be one of them. But then what you do is you go and say, okay, well, what are the top, 5 people in that community? So here we can see Bastian, Rebecca, Emily, Phil, Andrea. Now, some of these folks may work for the company, so I'm guessing Bastian, as forum leader, probably works for Asana, or maybe Rebecca and Emily do, because there's different logos there. I don't know. But irrespective, like, weed out your staff members, and then reach out to all of those individual community members and say, do you mind if I get on a call with you for like 25, 30 minutes? I just want to ask you a bunch of questions about what you love And this is what's really important, is when you get on that call with them, also say, look, this is how I like to say it. Look, I just want to level with you. I'm unoffendable when it comes to constructive feedback and criticism. And my job here is to make this community as amazing for everybody as I can. But I can't see what I can't see. So I want to give you full permission for the next 10, 15 minutes and just tell me what frustrates you. Tell me what you think sucks. Tell me things that were irritating to you. Tell me what we should be doing better. Tell me what we're not seeing, right? And open that door to them. If you don't open that door to them, they won't give you that information. And while it's nice and flattering to get in a call with somebody and them to tell you all the things that they love, that doesn't give us anything other than, you know, the feels. And what we want is we want the focus. We want the feels, but we also want the focus. But you will only get that if you give them permission to do so. Okay, so that's it. Hope you found this useful. One thing you should go and check out is that I launched an accelerator called the Community Leadership Core. It's an invitation-only accelerator that is designed to maximize your investment in communities. If you've got a company and you are building a community, no matter what the topic is, whether it's a tech community or another type of community, the Community Leadership Core is where you can come. I generate customized roadmaps for you. We've got customized training. We have an amazing peer group, one-on-one support from me. Lots of great discussion and engagement. You should definitely check out the Community Leadership Core. You can find the link down there. It's communityleadershipcore.com. But hit that like button if you like this video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to get more of these. I'll see you in the next one.